WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call or text 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
And good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on award-winning 95.9 WATD. My name's John Paul, the Car Doctor, here to help you with your car problems, car decisions, whatever's on your mind about vehicles, and I guess to some extent life. Well, Jesse will handle the life questions. I'll just handle the car questions, and we'll kind of go that way. We've got a good program planned for today. We have our buddy Mike Quincy from Consumer Reports joining us. Mike, good morning, and welcome back to the Car Doctor program. Mike?
Hey, how's it going today?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm not sure I was buzzed in properly, but I'm here now.
Well, you know, we can always blame Jesse for unbuzzing you or whatever it is. So, yeah. Hey, the April issue of Consumer Reports was out, and you guys came out with the top picks of different vehicles. And what's great is it's something anybody can look at for free too, right?
Yeah, 100%. The top picks at consumerreports.org are semi-award-winning website. I was trying to find a way to say we're award-winning, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, go to consumerreports.org, check out the top picks article. It is, as we say, in front of the paywall. That means you can't look at it for free. And this is really the best of the best, Consumer Reports' greatest hits for the last 12 months. And to be a top pick, you have to do well in Consumer Reports testing, have good scores in our surveys for reliability and owner satisfaction. We're also requiring that any vehicle to be a top pick comes standard with automatic emergency braking that works at both low speeds with pedestrian detection and highway speeds. So we're always raising the bar.
And it's interesting because you don't have every type of vehicle in there. I don't think I remember seeing full-size pickup trucks.
Correct. I mean, we do sometimes look at it, category by category and by pricing. And the problem with the full-size pickup trucks is hardly any of them are all that reliable. So that's a problem.
Yeah, it certainly is. And when you look at this, and we'll talk about the cars that made the list in a minute. I have to think that when your friends and neighbors know what you do, and they come up to you and say, Mike, what kind of car should I buy? First off, how do you answer the question? And secondly, do they ever really take your advice?
That's a great question. And I'm sure you get peppered with this, too, because people know what you do. I am asked quite often, and usually I answer their question with a question, which when I do that with my wife, she's always annoyed. But basically, my response is, what are you using the vehicle for? Are you transporting a carload full of kids on a regular basis to school, to soccer practice, to whatever? Or are you just driving by yourself? Are you ever pulling a trailer? Are you going to be driving in the sun? So in other words, I'm trying to get a background of how they use their vehicle, because most people buy more vehicles than they need. Let's say there's a kind of a traditional family household with a mother and a dad, and they have one kid. And I had a neighbor that insisted on a Toyota Land Cruiser. And I was like, well, are you always driving carpools? No, I just want something big. Okay. So sometimes people kind of want what they want, and it doesn't really matter that it makes a lot of sense or not. And yes, definitely people have an idea of what they want, and when I'm not recommending it, they sometimes buy it anyway, and 6 months later they find out that my warnings about poor reliability have come true, and they regret their decision. But yeah, live and learn.
There you go. Well, let's start to go over the picks. And they're sort of grouped by category. So let's rattle some off. What ones work the best, I guess. So
I think one of the ones that really jumped out at me when I saw the final edited published piece was the Nissan Sentra. believe it or not, Nissan seems to have fallen off the face of the earth if you ever follow the auto industry, because they've had just a string of mediocre products. But the good news here is that the Sentra starts around 25. You get a decent model for about $25,000. Got 32 miles per gallon overall in Consumer Reports testing, and it's genuinely fun to drive. Nissan spent the time to dial in a pretty compelling chassis. It's pretty comfortable. It's pretty quiet. It met the criteria for to be a top pick. So while the top picks list at Consumer Reports April issue has a number of some pricey cars, it's nice to see an affordable one like the Sentra.
Yeah, it really is. And like you said, it's a all-around kind of capable car for under $25,000. And to me, not that many years ago, $25,000 was a lot. And I guess I'm old enough to remember when I think $32,500 hit the luxury tax number. Now you're lucky if you can buy a car for under $30,000. But yeah, I for one reason or another, and different between what I do and what you folks at Consumer Reports do, you go out and buy all your cars, where mine come courtesy of the vehicle manufacturers. But for one reason or another, I've been driving a lot of Nissan and Infiniti products in the last month or so, and I haven't driven them for a while, and I was surprised. Most of them are pretty well dialed in. They did a really good job.
Yeah, they have some, like any manufacturer, they have some peaks and valleys, strengths and weaknesses of their product line. But the Sentra is really one of the standouts here, and one that we're genuinely impressed with.
And in the midsize category, it's pretty hard not to say Toyota Camry. But the Camry for $25,000, hybrid, nice car.
Yeah, I mean, when people always looked at the Camry as kind of the butt of jokes. It's like, oh, get something boring like a Camry. The Camry is way more compelling to drive than you'd imagine. I mean, Toyota has a long history of racing it and all kinds of different racing programs. They know how to build a really nice handling car, and the Camry is exactly that. But not only does it handle well, it's quiet, it's comfortable, the controls are super simple. They have a long history of incredible reliability, and 48 miles per gallon overall in a normal-sized 4-passenger sedan is super nice. I love the Camry just because I'm kind of suffering from SUV fatigue, because every vehicle, it seems like we test at Consumer Reports as an SUV. So congratulations for Toyota with sticking with the Camry. I like how easy it is to park and live with. It is honestly one of my favorite cars.
And you mentioned something about controls, and I think that's a really good point. Going back to my kind of a little bit of a joke question, where the people ask you questions and then don't always pay attention. It is important to go out and road test the car, but also road test the tech in the car at the same time. I recently drove a vehicle, and the tech was great if you were sitting still. It was super annoying and really distracting driving it down the road.
Yeah, I've spoken to a number of automotive executives, and what I've learned is that it's no different than when you're in high school. When you're in high school, there's a handful of cool kids, and they're wearing certain sneakers or wearing certain jeans or doing certain things, and everyone wants to be like the cool kids. Well, over the last 10 years, the cool kid in the automotive world is Tesla. And so all the car companies, when they're going to redesign their interiors, well, maybe we should do what Tesla does. Now, Tesla has a number of innovations. They have incredible electrical engineering in their cars. A Tesla Model Y is one of Consumer Reports' top picks, but their controls are a nightmare. You have to do everything through the screens, and it's just not intuitive at all. But to go back to the simplicity of the Camry, I have kind of an informal test that I kind of use when I'm writing about cars. It's like, can a car pass the "you're going to let your neighbor borrow your car" test? And by that I mean, if you throw your neighbor says, "Hey, can I borrow your car?" and you throw them the keys to your Camry, they get in, and within 10 seconds they can adjust everything. If you're going to let your neighbor borrow your Tesla Model Y, you have to stand over their shoulder while they're in the driver's seat. It's like, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. This is how you do this. And so there's nothing like it's not self-explanatory when you're in a car with complicated controls, and that does add to distraction, and it does decrease its overall safety.
Yeah, I drove the Chevy Equinox EV a few weeks ago, and I'm like, so where's the start button?
Exactly.
Oh, it doesn't have one. Oh, okay. You know.
But like another good example. The BMW X5 and the plug-in X5 is also a top pick in Consumer Reports April issue. It is a fabulous vehicle, but they make you go into the center screen to adjust the lumbar on the driver's seat. Instead of it being a hard button like usually on the side of the seat where 99% of all the cars, you have to go into the center screen. If you go on road trips, you might do these little micro adjustments to your seat, a little bit more here, a little bit less there. And to have to go into a screen to adjust your seat is just patently ridiculous. And so I don't understand why car makers do this. I don't know why they think they're doing everything through the screen is like super cool, but we all wish they would stop.
Yeah, I think the last Tesla I was in, the only physical button was for the emergency flashers, and I think that's a DOT requirement.
Right. Yeah. The Tesla's requiring there's a little slider on the steering wheel to use the turn signals. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I mean, hey, let's be different. Whatever.
Another car that is easy to recommend, and frankly it's an easy to recommend brand, is Subaru, and the Crosstrek came up as your top pick in that sort of subcompact category.
Yeah, this is a really, really competitive, popular category. People want an SUV, but not a huge SUV. The Crosstrek is just the right size, 29 miles per gallon overall in Consumer Reports, testing legendary Subaru reliability, standard all-wheel drive. As you know, Subaru is the brand of New England for a good reason. And the ride height is good enough so you get a little bit of ground clearance. It's easy to get in and out, easy controls. Subaru has done very well in Consumer Reports testing over the last several years, and the Crosstrek is one of their mainstays.
And speaking of that, the Forester did well too, right?
Oh yeah, the Forester, boy, you can't get enough of the Subaru Forester. I mean, it's been a top pick for 12 straight years in Consumer Reports. So Subaru certainly knows what they're doing. They know their audience. They price it between about $30,000 and $40,000. 29 miles per gallon overall in Consumer Reports reliability surveys. One of the great things about the Forester is it has excellent visibility. So thin roof pillars, lots of glass area, and it's also super easy to get in and out of. The seat is almost like at hip level, so you're not like falling in or pulling yourself out. It's actually, believe it or not, one of the vehicles that we recommend for older drivers. If they have, they can't turn their neck as much, they need better visibility, they need better access. The Forester, if you're dealing with an aging parent that's still driving but that needs a new car, the Forester is almost always a great recommendation for them.
And with the eyesight system and all the other safety technology, as we get older, having this a little bit of extra electronic wizardry is a pretty good idea.
It is, and Consumer Reports, just so you know, that we don't just kind of blindly say all the safety equipment is awesome. We look at the data. We look at the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, and we see which vehicles have lower accident rates and how they're equipped and what kind of safety features they have. And we use that as our basis to say, it has to have standard automatic emergency braking, because the data shows that these are reducing accidents and reducing injuries and fatalities.
Yeah, you have to look at all of it. You're absolutely right. And I'm again old enough to remember when anti-lock brakes came out and people thought they were evil. I don't want my cars, pulsing the brake pedal. And I at the time I worked in a garage and we serviced some of the local police vehicles, and they're like, "Can you disconnect it?" And I'm like, Why? And they're like, well, there's times we want to lock up the brakes, and I'm like, no, you really don't.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I too remember pushing back on early ABS cars, and I had a very wise editor say to me, you know, when you're taught to drive, we were taught to pump the brakes. Well, listen, the ABS system can pump the brakes a lot faster than you can.
No, and even when I try to explain it to people, I try to say ABS in one way can stand for allows you to brake and steer at the same time. Something you can't do when you panic. And
100%.
If you jam on the brakes and let the electronic wizardry do its thing, you can actually steer around and slow down at the same time. We haven't really talked about luxury cars, but Lexus made the list as well, right?
Yeah, Lexus and Toyota, just like with Subaru, always seems to wind up on Consumer Reports' top picks list. The NX 350 hybrid and NX 450 plug-in hybrid did very well in Consumer Reports testing. I mean, it's basically taking the good parts of the Toyota RAV4 hybrid and plug-in, and you're putting it in a really nice package. It's a handsome car. It's got a beautiful interior. It's quiet. We got about 38 miles per gallon overall in the regular hybrid version, and with a 37-mile all-electric range of the plug-in, that also is super competitive. And when you're running out of EV boost, it still gets 35 miles per gallon overall. It's a really, really nice car.
Now, we've talked Lexus, Toyota, Honda, Subaru. Consumer Reports occasionally comes under fire about, well, there's no domestic cars really on the list, but in fact there sort of was with the Maverick pickup, right?
Oh yeah, that and technically Tesla is an American car too,
right.
But that's okay.
Right.
You mentioned that there wasn't any full size pickup trucks on the top picks list, and but we do have a small pickup, the Ford Maverick, the Maverick Hybrid, and while the standard Maverick is a nice truck, it's nicely sized. I think most Americans don't need huge pickup trucks, so the Maverick is perfect. Really, what steals the show is the hybrid version. 37 miles per gallon overall in our testing. It is such a lovely little truck, easy controls, and apparently they're still selling like hotcakes. I mean, the Ford dealers, and anecdotally that I speak with, they can't keep them in stock. So if you're interested in a small fuel-efficient pickup truck, get on the waiting list and sign yourself up for a Maverick Hybrid.
Yeah, my one of my regrets, and I guess I have a lot in my life sometimes when I look back, is I didn't order a Maverick pickup when they were like $20,000.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they have. Listen, they've like a lot of things. They've kind of creeped up in price. The Maverick starts around $26,000 and goes up to about $40,000. So it is not cheap. But you and I are similar in age, and we think that we used to think that $25,000 was a lot of money for a car, and now I think the average price of a new car is around $46,000, which still is frightening to me.
Yeah. Years ago, I met David Champion from Consumer Reports, and someone called him a white-coated toaster tester.
Yeah.
And then he had a bunch of the car testing guys out with white coats and a bunch of toasters kind of at your test track. And I always thought that was funny. And you guys are sort of anything but white-coated toasters.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny stereotype of Consumer Reports, like, oh, 1 minute they're testing cars, the next minute they're testing toasters. No, actually, at Consumer Reports Test Track, which is in Connecticut, all we do is cars, child safety seats, and tires. The rest of the testing are done in our labs in the home office in Yonkers, New York. And the people that I work with at the test track, we are car enthusiasts through and through. And by that I mean on the weekends, many of my coworkers have race cars. They have motorcycles. They have dirt bikes. Myself and a number of my colleagues, follow everything that's going on in Formula One. We go to car shows. We go at Connecticut. The local racetrack is Lime Rock Park, and my sons and I go there all the time. We love cars. We love the smell of burning rubber. Nothing is better than fresh pavement after a cool summer rain. It's kind of in our blood, and we really love it. And when people hear that I work for Consumer Reports, and they start asking me questions about appliances, oh, Mike, I need a new microwave. I'm like, I have no idea what to tell you, but I'll look it up for you on the website. So, yeah, we're car people.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of car shows, did you go out to the New York Auto Show?
I did. I was there for 2.5 days, and did a bunch of videos, and we shot a podcast there. And I'm listen, the auto shows in terms of their car makers participation has definitely trailed off over the years, and COVID kind of almost put a spike into them. But it was good to see still a very good output in New York. We had a great time.
Yeah, and a lot of times you look at auto shows and they sort of have themes. You know, L.A. was always, for a bunch of years, was sort of the green auto show. Everything hybrid and electric, took place there. New York was kind of the tail end of the model year because, April-ish, they're ramping up for the production for the next year. And sometimes it was less dramatic. Was there a theme, or was a theme there was really no theme?
There really wasn't a theme, and you're absolutely right. There a couple of years ago in New York, we saw a number of new small cars, which was really nice. But this year's theme, if it was anything, it was the Subaru show, because they debuted their new Outback and the Forester Hybrid, as well as 2 electric models, and so Subaru has kind of gone against the tide of ignoring New York, what a lot of car makers are doing, but they went full in for New York, and it makes sense because New England is kind of one of their prime markets, and I did the videos on the Outback and the Forester Hybrid, and I'm not a fan of their styling, but these are very important cars, and it was good to be there to see them firsthand.
Yeah, no, I think looking, I haven't been in New York. I think maybe, it was probably when COVID hit and everything sort of shut down, and that was sort of it. So I haven't been to that many car shows lately, but still, I'm always pleased to be able to see it and be able to see what you guys are up to and everybody else is up to at these shows. One of the sort of best kept secrets in the automotive industry is this new electric little pickup called the Slate. You guys have any thoughts on that?
We just got the press release like everybody else did. We haven't had one at the track. As you and your audience probably knows, we buy all of the vehicles that we test, so we haven't had a chance to get our hands on one. I think in theory it makes all the sense in the world, because you're not road tripping this. You're not say, let's drive from New York to California. No, this is just kind of around town, little errand stuff. It's not a hardcore work truck. You're not towing a massive trailer or carting around a horse trailer or something like that on the weekends with it. So it really will fulfill the needs of a lot of people. It seems to be priced right, but keep in mind that anytime a new car is introduced, the manufacturer talks about how cheap it is, and then when it comes down to it, well, if you need this option or this, and all of a sudden the price goes up. And also, this is a new manufacturer, and the automotive world in the United States is just littered with the bodies of new manufacturers. So it is very hard to break into the U.S. Auto market and to kind of give it a go. I mean, think about how much money GM poured into Saturn. Remember Saturn?
Oh, yeah.
They're no longer here. So if General Motors and all of their resources couldn't make Saturn go, then I'm not saying I'm skeptical, but I'm going to wait and see if this manufacturer can really get some traction and make headway into the U.S. market. But listen, anyone's talking about a small, affordable pickup truck, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and the idea behind it, like you said, a lot of times the manufacturers come out. Lucid, I think, is a good example. They came out with this, fantastic sedan, but the first one they put out was what, $250,000 or something. And it's like, well, where's the $75,000 one?
It has to be approachable by from normal people. I mean, high 6-figure cars are generally low volume, so.
Right.
So how does any car company make money on this? And I think that's the challenge. I mean, even Tesla is forget about their stock price. Just their profitability per vehicle is pretty low, and they make a lot of their money selling carbon credits. So if Tesla has issues with profitability, how do some of these smaller EV manufacturers make it?
Yeah, it's really, and you say littered with the bodies of vehicle manufacturers, and that goes right back to the beginning of time, to the 1900s, and you look back historically at all the startups in the 1910, 1920, 1930 of car companies that didn't make it, and because it's very expensive to build a car and it's very expensive to make a car company profitable.
Yeah, I mean GM wasn't always that big conglomerate of brands. I mean, Oldsmobile, stood on its own, and Buick and all those, and they just kind of became acquired by GM. But you're just looking back in the last 20 years of the brands that are no longer offered in the United States, or a brand that I used to love, Saab, is just completely gone, and I'm sad every time I think about that. Yeah. But it's very competitive. It's a tough way to make money, and the car companies that are good at it have gotten efficiencies over the years, and a startup doesn't have any of that wisdom yet. So we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I was sitting at a stoplight the other day, and there was a repair shop opposite me, and they had a big banner, and it said all the different car makes they fix. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, no Oldsmobile, no Pontiac, no Mercury, no Saturn, no Saab, and I'm looking at the list. And even though they claim they can fix all these cars, I'm kind of just made me think about how the manufacturing and how the nameplates have shrunk over the years. And you're absolutely right when you say what isn't here anymore, and it's a pretty big number. So if people want more information about the best cars of the year for 2025, the top picks, consumerreports.org is where you go, and it's in front of the paywall. And before we let you go, tomorrow is Cinco de Mayo. Do you have a good cocktail recipe for something to drink on Cinco de Mayo?
Well, traditionally, I would go with something tequila. I have a very, very simple tequila recipe. It's like triple sec, which is like an orange liqueur, simple syrup, tequila, and some lime juice. It's not a super complicated drink. You just do it in a regular handshake or serve it straight up. I'm not a salt guy, but I'm going to add a slice of lime, and it's delicious and refreshing. And happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody out there, and drink responsibly. That's all I can tell you.
That's right. All right. And did you make something for Kentucky Derby Day too?
Well, traditionally that would be a bourbon drink, like a mint julep, but
which by the way is awful.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I would rather just have it straight up. But no, I was just in the mood for a very simple vodka martini last night, and that's what I drank. That's what I posted on my Facebook page. I needed something cold because I did a really long bike ride to get ready for a fundraiser that I'm going to be doing in August. And the whole time that this is probably terrible, but the whole time I was riding, I was thinking, boy, tonight's martini is going to be good. It's going to be cold. I can't wait for it.
Well, and like you said, you guys are, car enthusiasts. You enjoy, electric cars. You enjoy gasoline cars. You enjoy burning rubber, all that stuff. But you're a little bit of a Renaissance man. You're a bread baker and a cocktailer. So you kind of and you sort of cover a lot of ground. I have two boys in their 20s, and they both look at me like, "What are you doing today, Dad?" I said, "I'm just pursuing my interest. I follow things that I find interesting. It's really that simple." It's like, well, cars are cool. Okay, I'm going to follow those. I like to bake. I like bread. I like cookies. I like to make cocktails. I like to exercise. I'm just doing stuff that I like to do, and I guess. The bottom line is life is not complicated. We make it complicated. So simplify your life, do the things you want, and just try to have some fun and laugh every single day. Yeah, well, I guess the difference between you and me is I like to eat cookies. I like to eat bread. I'll enjoy a cocktail once in a while, and I'm not a big fan of exercise. So, Always a good time.
The reason I exercise is because I like to eat. How about that?
There you go. There you go. I did go for I did go for a 5-mile bike ride the other day, but that was about
That's
it.
awesome.
So, yeah. So, but anyway, hey Mike, always a pleasure. Always a good time joining you, having you join us on the Car Doctor radio program, and tell all the folks at Consumer Reports I said hello.
I will. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Take care, Mike. We need to take a break, pay some bills. We're a little bit late. You're listening to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
Car geeks and do-it-yourselfers rely on AAA to give them extra peace of mind on the road. AAA offers 24/7 roadside assistance, whether you're in your own vehicle, a friend's car, or even a rental. Combine that with great rates on insurance, hotel, gas, and dining savings, and discounts on 8,700 brands, and you're covered on and off the road. Get a special membership offer today at AAA.com/join. That's AAA.com/join.
Hey there, folks. It's Quinn Kelly reminding you to tune in Sunday night at 5 for the South Shore's first voice in sports talk radio, The Sports Exchange. Unmatched coverage of local high school action as well as a relatable voice on all things Boston Pro Sports. We've got you covered live at 5 every Sunday night. Have a question for our host, missed last week's show, or just want to share a great sports story? You can find us on Twitter at SE on WATD. But remember, mark your calendar, folks, and we'll see you Sunday night at 5 for the Sports Exchange on 95.9 WATD.
Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD. Well, the car that got me around this week was the Nissan Murano, and I haven't driven or been in a Murano for a bunch of years. Wow, it has changed. Real evolution in the vehicle. And I've driven, I mentioned this to Mike Quincy, for some reason I've driven a lot of Nissan and Infiniti products in the last 6 weeks or so, and probably because I haven't driven a lot of Nissan and Infiniti products, and the Nissan guys probably like, put him into all of our vehicles if we can. So, but this is the 4th generation, big redesign, and I think it really addresses some of the shortcomings of its predecessors. The Murano, decent vehicle. I just never cared for it, and I don't know. It's very first version, I think, and I think it's in version 4 now. I just found the styling a little bit odd. The ride comfort was okay. The controls were okay, but it was hard for me to recommend. The 2025 model, way sharper styling, LED headlights, refined powertrain, different powertrain. We'll get into that in a minute. And a very tech-heavy interior, which you'll either love or hate. Certainly, it puts it as a competitive option, competitive vehicle in a very crowded segment. I mean, let's face it. SUVs, like Mike Quincy Consumer Reports said, SUVs are just extraordinarily popular. And when he drove a couple of sedans, he had kind of, SUV burnout. He likes driving sedans, and so do I from time to time. Design and styling, the 2025 Murano sheds its kind of dated, swoopy, cartoonish look. The first ones I thought were really kind of cartoonish almost. I like the slim LED headlights. They also light up the road really well without being blinding. The broad grille, I think, looks really nice. Really creates a premium, almost Infiniti-like look. The floating roof design is gone, replaced with a cleaner look overall. One of the things I liked, and I didn't notice it until I had the hatch open one day, I'm like, well, there's no rear wiper. Well, it is. It's just tucked under the spoiler, and it gives it just a nice look, and probably doesn't get attacked by drive-through car washes, which is kind of nice. Previous models to me, I don't think aged that well. I have a neighbor who has a Murano. It looks like it needs to lose weight when you look at it. The new models kind of has this elegant look, and I think it should age a little more gracefully. Big change in the drivetrain. The 2025 Murano gets rid of the 3.5-liter V6, an engine that Nissan's been using forever and ever, and sort of the engine that was in the last Frontier pickup truck that I drove. It has a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. It produces 241 horsepower and 260 foot-pounds of torque. The outgoing engine, the V6, 260 horsepower, so a 20 horsepower, no, 19 horsepower less, but torque, so that feeling when you push on the accelerator that puts you back in the seat, that's up 20 foot-pounds over the V6. It's got a 9-speed automatic, no CVT in this, which is nice. It just feels like it shifts better. The powertrain just feels more refined, better low-end torque. It's smoother. Fuel economy, about the same, 23 miles per gallon combined is what it's been saying. I guess I would have expected more since it's got 2 less cylinders, but, it does feel good. The Turbo 4 is quieter, but it does kind of lack the V6. V8s always felt great. V6s or straight sixes didn't feel quite as good. 4 cylinders, not quite as good as a V6. 3 cylinders, yeah, but 3 cylinders, some of those feel pretty good too. Interior and technology, dual 12-inch screens, Google-based infotainment, which Nissan's using a lot of. Apple, wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Also has Google Assistant on the premium trim levels. The older models had a small touchscreen. It's kind of funny. When I get into my 2018 car, I think it's got a 6-inch touchscreen or something, and the resolution's terrible. And I get into some of these new cars, and they have like HD TV, screens in them, 1080p resolution, and the resolution on this is also very good. A climate control, it's a little frustrating. As an example, it's programmed. The previous driver, I guess, programmed the climate control. When it's hot out, it turns on the cooling seats, so you get this cool breeze kind of feel through the seats. I just don't like that. It doesn't feel comfortable to me. To go in and turn that off, you have to go to the touchscreen, find the little icon for the seats, and shut it down. It's nothing you want to do while you're driving down the road. Again, it takes too many steps to do that. Cabin, very upscale feel, nice materials used throughout. I don't know, the seats. Nissan is putting Volvo level seats in cars. It seems like Nissan's zero gravity seats, with their terminology, I believe. Now it's in both the front and back seat. Just real comfortable. They do a good job. They're seats that feel like to be great for a long ride. Cargo capacity, it's pretty good. It's not a class leader. You open up the back and, it probably has similar cargo capacity in my, now 7-year-old Hyundai Santa Fe Sport. It handles better than its predecessor. It has stiffer suspension, electric power steering, improved roll control, feels pretty composed when you put it into a corner a little fast. Again, it's, is it a Cayenne? No, but it's an SUV. It doesn't pretend to be anything but an SUV. So the verdict, 2025 Nissan Murano is a marked improvement over the best Muranos, and probably one of the best Muranos to date. Good design, premium look. I think it is comfortable. It has great style. Maybe it falls a little short in performance, but if you're looking for a quiet ride, it's really a compelling choice. So take a look. Couple things that came up in the mail today. And by the way, if you want to join us, phone lines are open at 781-837-4900. Paul is manning the board with Jesse. We don't know Paul, but he's manning the board with Jesse today. So give us a call at 781-837-4900. Say hello to Paul, and he'll get you on the air. And he's learning new stuff, which is always nice to know. I got an email from somebody who says, I always enjoy listening to your Car Doctor podcast. I listen at the gym. And I'm always surprised. Now, Jesse's a podcast pro. His podcast, Hometown Ghost Stories, is in like the top 0.5% of all the podcasts in the world. I honestly started a podcast because when I have guests on, like Mike Quincy from Consumer Reports, or next week we have somebody on from Bosch Electronics, we're going to talk about scan tools and testing because everybody wants to test their cars. And usually what happens is the PR person says, oh, by the way, can I get a copy of that interview? And recording the radio show you'd think would be easy, but it isn't sometimes. And especially back in the old days when you had to record it on cassette tapes or whatever. So I decided, podcast was a good way to do this. And the idea that the podcast has people listening, I'm always happy. So this person says, I listen to Jim. I'm a retired electrical engineer and live in New York. He says, during your talk on April 27th, you mentioned about jump starters and you keep one in each of your vehicles along with an air compressor. Yes, I do. In fact, I used the air compressor this week. And I think you said the jump starter was around $100. I would always change my car batteries when they get to be 5 years old, just as insurance against getting stuck at midnight in the middle of nowhere with a dead battery, no one around where I could use my jumper cables. AAA is great, but sometimes it takes a while for them to get to me. Well, our average response time is somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes, but it's an average. And, if if the weather's terrible or you're in the middle of nowhere, it might take a little bit longer. He's right. And an hour seems like a long time when you're sitting waiting, and I agree. So he goes on to say, I would always use my air compressor, plugs in a utility outlet, what we called in the old days a cigarette lighter socket. A couple times a year when temperature drops. I also, maybe every other year when I pick up a nail, it'll get me home so I can bring it to the shop until the next day. However, we're filling up tires on one side of the car, have to go to the other, plug the cable, opposite door, plug it back in. It's slow. It had no presets. Gauge wasn't all that accurate. And I would have to go over the pressure needed, use my pencil gauge as I let air out to correct the tire pressure. So I bought a AUXITO jump starter air compressor combo. He says, I think it was about $100, 3,500 amps. You set the pressure when needed. I get back in my warm car, wait for it to beep and shut off when it reaches the right temperature. Since it has its own battery, I don't need to fool around rerouting the power cable. It also has a bright LED light and warning strobe. I think I found it at Walmart with free shipping. I tossed the old compressor to my junk box. So it's a compressor in jump starter, I guess. So it sounds pretty good. So it's a air compressor and jump starter combo. So you can jump start a car with it. I got a email, and there's a million of these kind of out there, and I like the idea that Frank has used it, and it works. I have gotten some stuff that didn't work that good. And, periodically companies will send me something to try it out. I noticed a company which called Nebo, Nebo, also has a Jumpstart air compressor combo thing. Looks about the size of a large book, I guess. And you can kind of do the same thing. I have not tried it. I have a Nebo flashlight that I think I picked up at the local hardware store. It's rechargeable. I like it. It works good. Haven't tried their jump starter thing. And again, the air compressor I keep in my car is a plug into the 12-volt outlet. It seems to work well when I need it. And I also keep plug kit. So a rubber plug style. You can buy them anywhere. Walmart, I think, is where mine came from, or O'Reilly's or AutoZone or something. I don't like the rawhide ones. I like the rubber ones. They make me feel better. But I always keep one with me in case same thing, you're out in the middle of nowhere, you run over a nail, tire gets low, you can see the nail. Let's see, do I air it up or do I try to patch it or plug it? Well, I can't patch it, but I can plug it. So at least I feel more secure. Plugs are a temporary fix, but it's enough to get you where you want to go. Jumpstart, the idea that Frank changes his batteries every 5 years. The average life of a battery in the Northeast is actually just a smidge under 5 years, so good idea. I always try to stretch them as far as I can because I carry a Jumpstart box with me. But I think the battery in my car now is, well, it's 7 years old, right? So, but I tested it the other day. It is a little low, but not, it still tests out as good. The battery that was in my wife's car was 8 years old. And one day I had you have to put your foot on the brake to start it. Went to start it. When I did, it came up with a weird warning message because I think I was trying to start the car and put the top down at the same time, and it really didn't like that because there wasn't enough battery voltage left. I kind of just shook it off as, oh, that was a weird glitch. I think I went to a store somewhere, came out, turned the key, almost didn't start, came back, got a battery, did something oddly that I sort of recommend against. I put a AGM battery in where there wasn't one. Generally, and this comes from our AAA engineering department, AAA engineering says flooded lead acid batteries, conventional style batteries, should be replaced with flooded lead acid batteries. AGM batteries should go in cars that have AGM batteries. And AGM is glass mat batteries. They're a little bit different. But at the time, and don't tell my bosses, I didn't buy a battery from AAA because it was down here in Florida. And I went over to the local Walmart and got their battery, which was an AGM battery. And I'm like, although we kind of say not to do that, maybe an AGM battery in a car that doesn't get driven very often and realistically doesn't get driven for about 6 months at a time, and it is hooked up to, I have a battery tender hooked up to it, so it is staying charged when I'm not using it, hurricanes accepted. Maybe it will have a little bit better life, because here in where I am currently, and will be for another little bit, hot weather states like Florida, Arizona, batteries typically only last 2 or 3 years. The heat is what kills the battery, is the issue. So thanks to Frank for that, for listening to us on the podcast. And you can always do that too. You can find the Car Doctor Radio podcast on most popular podcast channels and stuff. So you can find us there and be able to find out what's going on. Our phone number again, if you would like to join us, 781-837-4900. A couple of the questions that came in this week. Somebody has a 2015 Subaru Outback. It's got 150,000 miles on it. He says, for several years now, very infrequently, after normal regular driving, the battery is dead in the morning. On recharging, jump-starting, there's no evidence of lights left on or other electrical problems. Car operates fine until the next infrequent repeat of the same thing. The last incident just occurred, notwithstanding replacing the alternator and battery last summer due to alternator failure. The battery terminals are clean. Thank you, Dale. Well, Dale, Subaru has had an issue with recharging. Subaru, in its wisdom, and I like Subarus, but in their wisdom, their alternators don't always work. And they don't always work on purpose. They stop when you charge a battery back up. You actually put a load on the engine, and you reduce fuel economy. So through the electronic wizardry of how Subaru charging systems work, they don't always charge the battery. When there's a time where it says the battery's fully charged, there's no real need to charge the battery. Why are we running the alternator when we don't need to and have surplus voltage? We don't need that, so we'll shut it off. And the charging profile, depending on how you drive, if you drive certain kinds of trips, may not fully charge the battery back up. So how did Subaru fix it? They put a bigger battery in with more reserve capacity, so the battery's less likely to go dead. And then they changed the charging system profile so it charged the battery more often. To me, it didn't really kind of fix the problem. What they did was they sort of, if you think of a battery as a big container of water, and every time you drive the car, you take a little bit of water out of the battery, and the alternator's job is to replenish it, put the water back in. Well, Subaru says, well, we'll make the reservoir bigger so it works better. And maybe not. The other thing, if your car happens to have Starlink, there's a module that runs Starlink called, I think, DCM, I think is what Subaru calls it, and it can cause a current draw. It's not much of a current draw. I mean, typically when you look for current draw, you look at something 50 milliamps or less. Starlink can draw 75, 80, 90 milliamps, and that over time can actually cause the battery to go dead. The last I knew, the Starlink DCM module was on like back order. Simple fix, look for the fuse that runs the DCM, pull the 7.5 amp fuse. Everything will still work. XM satellite, Bluetooth, all that stuff will still work. It just shuts down that module. See if the problem goes away. It's easy enough. Why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk to Paul from Somerville. My name is John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
Even car geeks and do-it-yourselfers rely on AAA to give them extra peace of mind on the road. AAA offers 24/7 roadside assistance, whether you're in your own vehicle, a friend's car, or even a rental. Combine that with great rates on insurance, hotel, gas, and buying savings, and discounts on 8,700 brands, and you're covered on and off the road. Get a special membership offer today at aaa.com/join. That's aaa.com/join.
This is my time.
Hey guys, it's Lexi James.
And we're Crier Creek.
Twilight Showcase Radio, hosted by Sandy Stride and Keith James.
Tune into Twilight Showcase Radio Sundays on 95.9 WATD and 95.9 WATD.com.
Search for Twilight Showcase on Facebook.
And visit twilightshowcase.org.
Twilight Showcase, tonight from 8 to 10 on 95.9 WATD. Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program. Let's talk to Paul in Somerville, see what's up in Somerville. Good morning, Paul.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, John. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I got a question. I'm going to stretch your memory back a little bit. About 4 to 5 years ago, you did a commentary on a Shell jump pack that you had been sent to test out.
Right.
And had very favorable reviews. And I ended up buying one of those. And I've always kept it in my car. 4 or 5 years. I've used it number of times. My car, or my wife's cars, or my neighbor's cars. Very reliable. Pulled it out a couple of times a year to charge it up to full capacity. So the other day, my neighbor's car was dead, and I pulled it out of the back of my car, went to plug it in, and got a tone, and it basically was flat dead. Brought it in the house, tried to charge it up. It never got past the first light. So I just figured this must be at the end of time, but I looked on the instructions that I still had in the case I had stored in, and it said this should be stored indoors and not in your car, and especially in hot areas because it could implode. I never knew that.
I try to ignore that part.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because I mean, I never had an issue with it, and I just think it must have aged out. Maybe 5 years is the lifetime. I just replaced it with a DeWalt, and basically the same thing. And their instruction says this is intended to be stored indoors. So I'm just trying to find out what you thought about whether or not there's any risk.
I mean, all the manufacturers are where lithium-ion batteries can sort of do goofy stuff at certain times, and cold weather can impact lithium batteries. I have a couple of and might be Ryobi stuff, and when it's really cold out, if I leave the batteries out in my shed, they won't charge. I have to bring them in, get them up to room temperature, then plug them back in and charge them up. So lithium batteries, as good as they are, sometimes they get kind of flaky. Yeah, there's all this warnings on all these jump packs that say, don't expose them to extreme heat. I've had one in, we have 3 cars in our family. I have one that sits in the old car that's up north that I think my nephew's driving right now or something. It sits up there. I have one, I take when I leave Florida, the Volkswagen we keep down here, the little kit I keep in the trunk in a gym bag basically has the jump start and the air compressor and all that stuff. I take it out and I put it in my shed, but I can tell you, I think my shed is, on a hot summer day, it's probably 100 degrees in there. So it's really no different than keeping it in the car. So I suspect, that the warning's there for a reason, but I suspect it's lawyer liability kind of thing as much as anything else. I mean, what's the point of having a unit like that if you can't keep it in the car and use it when you need it?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, I've had it in there. I'm guessing this is 5 years.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe 6. But I think it's at least 5.
No, because when I remember getting that one, and it was kind of funny. I kept that one in the little boat I bought. I kept that one in my boat, and it didn't like the moisture. I put it in a plastic bag, and I put it in a little zipper bag thing, and left it in my little. I have a little small boat, but it is electric start, and I'm like, if I'm out somewhere and the battery's dead, it'd be nice to have that. It didn't like that environment, and I ended up calling the company back up and saying, hey, look, this thing quit working, and they sent me another one, and rather than keep it in the boat, I kept it around for a while. I used it a little bit. I liked it. It did everything it was supposed to do. I gave it to a neighbor who had a battery problem, and he was heading back to, I don't know, Ohio or Michigan or someplace. I said, here, just keep it. Take it with you. Keep it. And because I had another brand. So, and as far as I know, he still has it, and it's probably still in his truck. So.
So, maybe I should write to the manufacturer and they'll send me a new one. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? So
yeah.
It couldn't hurt. But, yeah, I mean, I think, that is a case with, I bet if you looked at the directions that come with, a DeWalt tool set, I'm willing to bet it probably says the same thing. It probably says don't store the batteries in your vehicle.
Yeah.
Probably the same thing. Hey, Paul, always a pleasure.
Nice talking to you, John.
All right, take care, Paul. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that music means we need to go. Until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car, and if you do see an emergency vehicle by the side of the road, blue, yellow, red lights, whatever they are, slow down or move over. It saves lives. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.